So this was Itarios playing black and Dyonn playing white. So let's take a look. So this move by black at E3 is a little odd because I think that in this variation, white actually ends up getting quite a nice corner. And if black plays here, even though black did get this like Hane at the head of two stones, which we kind of think of as being good, white's territory here is quite large, and there's still a cutting point at E5. So I wouldn't be in love with this position for black. I feel like you still owe another move here, whether on the side or whether another move over here. Something here doesn't feel great for black. And even if black were to connect solidly here, that means white gets this tiger's mouth here. So, and this is a pretty forced sequence. As soon as black plays at E3, white's going to play here. Black really can't consider playing anything else. The only thing that black could consider would be playing here, but this is going to be a really tough fight for black because this group has no eye, or it has no base, and this group is also baseless. And these three stones are much stronger than either this group or this group. So probably a little bit of questionable play here at E3. And again, kind of happening again, even though it feels like you're getting an outward influence here, you still have that cut at E5. And even if white chooses to peep here, this is also quite painful, right? This is not exactly a strong group for black. So really just an early lead for white, I think. And playing it so closely at G4 to protect that F5 weakness, these stones are way too overconcentrated, right? Usually when you have two stones, you want to move away 3 or so spaces. And now you're only moving away 1 space. The amount of territory that black has mapped out here is really only worth about 6 or 7 points, where the amount of territory that white has very clearly mapped out is at least 15, if not more. Not a terrible move, but I think that probably better just to play a corner move first. The issue with playing a move like this is black is going to play something like N3 and use this stone to make white to force white into black's strength over here. And that's a really good way of attacking. You want to push your opponent into your strength. And so even if white were to build up a base here, it's going to be very tight. And now, black has a somewhat strong group over here and white has a weak group. So black's going to be able to build up territory on this side over here. And this is kind of how we should be thinking about how to attack. So something like this might happen, where black can maybe get a move over here and then continue the attack on this group over here, building up some strength over here. So let's see. So white ends up playing here, which is fine, but again, this isn't exactly a great base because it's yes, it's a 2/6 extension on on the third line, but the problem is, black can very easily take away this base from white by playing H2. So white owes a move here. So I think no matter what white plays here, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, whether white plays at J3, whether white plays at H3. White's going to still have to play an extra move here. If I were white, I might consider just jumping and getting out further in the race first. And John, feel free to ask questions, by the way, audience participation, or anyone else in the room. I didn't see who else joined. Definitely feel free to ask questions. It's always great when we can get a little bit of audience participation. So black hits here. This is probably a little bit of a risky move. I think in my mind, it's kind of saying, okay, I'm going to take this outward influence, right? Like if white just lives here, what is black really getting? Not much, right? This influence over here is not amounting to very much, and it's allowing white to get out here. So I'm not really quite sure what black would be gaining other than maybe a few points on this side. If I were to do anything here, I would probably block at G3 because that's going to take away the eye space for this white group. And then black could also consider playing elsewhere because there's not going to be that much territory here for either player.
How about M4, like a shoulder hit?
A shoulder hit here?
Yep.
So again, you run into that issue of white still gets out here. And so because there's no stone at G3, this white group is effectively alive. And so you're pushing, but the problem is this group is no longer strong. If black doesn't have this stone at G3, this group is actually in danger of dying. So white could even potentially play here first to take away some of that eye shape. But I think this is probably just the safe move.
I see.
And it's hard to say, it's hard to say that this move is really helping black attack, because it feels like to me, white's building up strength to get a better attack on this group here. So, my first instinct is really going to be playing something like G3 here. Because now when
Yeah,
white jumps here, at least you have some eye space.
Yeah, it depends how I was treating that group as thickness, but it wasn't. It was weak.
It was thickness for a little while, but I think after ignoring this move, I can't call it thick anymore.
Yeah.
So no issue for white just to come out here. There's a lot of cutting points that exist here for black. So if black tries to get too greedy here, white's going to be able to cut through pretty nicely and really put some pressure on these stones over here. So black definitely has to be careful. So at this point, this push through here for white is going to be really painful for black. And even if black just extends here, white plays here, and white's very easily gotten out. And again, black has really not made very much territory. Let's go back a little bit. This move is kind of saying, it's I want to live here, and it's not exactly a small territory, but now black's corner position is much stronger, and so you're not going to be able to, you potentially might not be able to invade it earlier, invade it later on, as you would in this potential position, right? There's this extra stone at O2 is not here, so now an invasion at the 3/3 stone could have a little bit more of effect. So, and then black just decided to give up the corner and take the outside influence, which isn't a terrible strategy, but I generally find that corners are going to be worth more than outside territory. So something like this might happen, in which case, yes, black does get a nice wall here, but white has also stolen all of the points that black has mapped out. So again, I think this would be a pretty positive result for white. And something similar happened here. Maybe a little bit different of a variation. Although I will say this wall is much cleaner for black than the one we just showed. So maybe this result might not have been the best, because there's very little weakness outside on this wall. And after black plays here, it's, if white were to try to play something like this, it's going to be very clear that it's going to be a lot harder for white to really make much out of it because of how strong this wall is. These stones here, because white's already alive in the corner, are pretty small. So I would just play here and then play here. So you've made your corner larger and you get to reduce. Like, I don't really care if black comes here because these two stones aren't worth very much. So this move at J3 is probably a little bit small given how open the board is right now. White could also just play here. And when you look at this territory, look how much territory white has gotten. It's an extra 8 to 10 points here. And black still needs to answer. And now you can come back and do something here, right? So there's still, and if you don't play here and black just plays here, then obviously white makes that much better. That makes sense?
It does.
And again, these points here, they're too small, right? Like, compared to playing a move at R4 or an approach move at Q15, this is really only worth about 6 to 8 points. Whereas this, letting black get this move here versus letting white get this move here, again, that's at least 8 to 10 points here, not to mention whatever white's going to be able to get on this side, or whatever black was going to get on this side too. So really, this R4 move should really be one of the focal points of the game, or playing elsewhere or something like that too. But G2 is just much too small. So white ends up getting this move. It's going to be a really tough fight for black. I'm not sure if black's really going to be able to do too much here. Maybe black lives, but it's not exactly a bad result for white because white was able to destroy the outline that this black group was making and take territory for itself. Definitely, black should definitely play here. This move leaves open a little bit of weakness. So white plays here, you have to play here. White plays here, you have to play here. Whereas if you play at S1, there's no issue. You know, white will still play here, and maybe that's going to cause for concern. Oops, excuse me. You know, that's a little bit of cause of concern, but as long as black then plays here, it's all okay. Oh, actually, sorry, here, it's all okay. So this is just a little bit of endgame points, but you've lost out on probably 2 or 3 points by playing this S2 move. Maybe this move, this approach at Q15 is a little aggressive, right? Because we do have this really strong black group here and a kind of weak white group here. So, you know, the natural move that someone should be thinking about is some sort of pincer move, right? Where something along these lines might happen. But now this group comes under some serious attack, right? This is kind of the first thing that comes into my head of, you know, I want to put pressure both on this stone over here, and I want to make use of this strength and attack this group. You could, of course, also play, you know, much more closely and play something like this to really get to a significant attack, as well, if that's the way you want to play. But some sort of variation where you're separating this stone from these 4 stones over here. This move at R15, it locally is a good territory move. You're getting a big corner, but white's position after the fact is too good. It's able to link up these stones, make these stones not weak anymore. This is too nice of a result for white. Yeah, so it's good that black saw that, you know, black couldn't just play at 017 and let, you know, white get this move here. It's good that black saw that something has to happen, but it would have been better to potentially have done so before these exchanges, because now white's stronger here. White has a better chance of fighting here. I think doing it a little bit earlier when there's no strength over here for white would have been cleaner and it giving you a better attack on these 4 stones. Yeah, it's not clear to me how white's going to get a really good fight in this position, because if white plays here, black plays here, white connects, these 3 stones are disconnected from these stones, and these 3 stones here, these black stones here, are quite flexible. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a tough fight for white right now, because again of how strong this black wall is and how strong these 3 black stones are. Nothing of black's is weak, whereas white has 2 weak group here. So I think at this point in time, rather than try to directly attack, I'd like to build up some strength first. So maybe something like this. Build up a little bit of strength here. If black wants to spend another move to build up, that's okay. You've taken some influence over here. This is a totally okay variation for white. You've gotten a large corner here, some influence over here. Yeah, black's going to get these stones, but there's still, you know, there's still certainly some aji here, right? You can peep here. You can play very light moves like this to reduce how much black's going to get, and so you can really shrink it down a bit as well. And there's even moves like this later on, which can be quite annoying for black as well. So even though it feels bad to give up these 4 stones, I think because you would be too weak here, white would be too weak here, I would be inclined of trying to fight it directly. I would try to come back later and see if I can build up a little strength first.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think this move might have been a little bit questionable. I can see why black played it, because black wants to try to play at S14 afterwards. So you know, if white blocks something like this, then obviously this is a nice way to disconnect the 2 groups and, you know, get outside. But I do think in this particular position, getting this tiger mouth is enough, because it prevents white from really connecting up in any clear way. Because white is so weak here, all white wants to do is connect up. It's not going to try to attack these stones. So when black plays here, white's going to play here and just try to connect these stones as best as possible. So, you know, something along these lines, right? This move by white is probably a little bit too aggressive, because now black's just going to break through. black has 1 weak group to white's 2 weak groups. So again, this fight is going to be good for black.
Yeah.
Probably better just to play here rather than coming diagonal. The only reason why you would not play here is if you want to preserve this cut. But I think because of some moves that are down here, this cut's never really going to be good for black. Because of this forcing move at 06. So for that reason, I think better just to come out and play here and extend a little bit. You know, these white stones, yes, they're building up some strength, but it's building strength facing black's wall, which means that there is no strength to that, right? Now black gets to peep, white connects, gets to continue, and now black is again attacking this weak white group here and this weak black group, this weak white group here. Again, because of this this move at 06, this cut doesn't work. So jumping here may not be the best move. Maybe something a little bit more ambitious, maybe a little bit further away, or even something like this would have been okay. You know, we need to get ahead in this race. We need to figure out a way to get ahead of these black stones so that we could try to connect up these 4 stones to this white group over here. By playing over here, you're just playing too far away from the action.
I wasn't sure that anything else would protect the cut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's this is a really nice move to think about. You know,
Yeah.
if black plays here, white Itarios plays here, and oops, it's yeah, there's really no good way of doing this because you can always get something. You might give up a couple points here or there, but you'll always be able to protect the cut. Probably better to push through this way. The problem with playing through here is if black plays here, white has to connect, no choice. And then black has a really strong position here. So there might be some weakness here, but you know, black could just play in a way where all it needs to do is attack and stop white from really getting any territory. So black's going to build up a nice position on the outside, potentially get some strength to attack this group, and white's really not getting anything out of this exchange. You know, maybe white lives here, but it's going to be very small, and black's outward influence is going to be quite nice. So the reason why I'm suggesting to play here first is because there are some deficiencies that this black group has, right? It's not perfectly alive yet. It has to still actually live locally or get out. And if you can create some issues for this group, you know, for example, something like this, white extends, you can either capture this 1 stone, or perhaps you can try to seal in this whole group. You know, when you're behind, and I think it's pretty clear to say that white is behind in this fight, white needs to try to do something a little bit more daring. Just playing in this way here really is not going to allow white to do very much. And that's not to say you play poorly, but you play in a way that's going to give you an opportunity to come back. If you're just following your opponent and playing, you know, very passive moves, it's going to be really difficult for this white group to really accomplish much. I just want to be a little mindful of time. John, were there any questions that you had in a later part of the game that you wanted to ask, or if your opponent's here now too, they can feel free to ask as well.
I don't have anything specific.
Let's just maybe take another maybe 3 or 4 moves, and then we'll switch up to the next game.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
Maybe this cut might be a little bit too aggressive, because now white can give up these 2 stones here to get a better attack in this group. And so now it becomes, you know, 1 somewhat weak white group to 1 pretty okay white group to 1 really weak black group. So this is exactly what white wants to happen. You know, and also one thing to note is that moves like this are sente for white, because black has to answer over here or something like that. So this fight ends up becoming a lot better for white now. So this cut, even though it was obviously separating these 2 stones, may have been questionable. Probably better just to extend here first, and then play something like this or something like this. to try to keep this whole white group sealed in. These two stones by themselves aren't that important. Okay. So let's stop here unless there are any questions on anything I've said today.